Well, in recognition of St. Patrick's Day, I will say, do not kiss me. I am married, and I'm not even Irish. So there you go. There's my St. Patrick's Day remark. Today's Torah portion is entitled Vayikra, and it begins the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is arguably one of the heaviest read of the first 5 books because it's so detailed in a lot of its prescriptions. We begin in Leviticus chapter 1. I broke it up in chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, just the first verses of each to emphasize something. Then the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when any man of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of animals to the herd of the flock." And in chapter 2, verse 1, it states, "Now when anyone presents a grain offering as an offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it and put frankincense on it." In chapter 3, "Now if the offering is a sacrifice of peace offerings, if he is going to offer out of the herd, whether male or female, he shall offer it without defect before the Lord." Now if you notice, I've highlighted there and underlined the word offering. Oftentimes the word that's used in Hebrew, korban, is translated sacrifice. And it can mean that, but more accurately, it's translated offering. And there is enough of a distinction. I won't spend too much time on the distinction between offering and sacrifice. But basically, sacrifice is almost a one-way action. An offering infers a two-way exchange. You give something and you receive something, a type of reciprocity. In this case, the offering are the animals and the grains, and the reception is right relationship with God. You're being obedient, you're carrying out what He's told you to, and you are in right relationship with Him as a result. So the word in Hebrew, korban, there's a few pictures here. Top left, you may not be able to make them out, is a gentleman named Yehuda Glick. He's an Orthodox rabbi who's now a member of the Knesset in Israel. He's been labeled a right-wing activist because he has advocated for more access to the Temple Mount. And there you see some depictions of people acting out what it would be like to give an offering. Top right, they're actually preparing it and cooking it. But yeah, those are just some depictions of people enacting what it would be like, mostly through the Jerusalem Temple Institute and carrying that. Now, as I said, the distinction being a korban, an offering. Well, how do we apply this now, or what is the application for us if we don't have animals or grain to offer? Well, a passage most of you are pretty familiar with. In Isaiah 53, verse 5, "But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed." Now, we know this speaks toward our Messiah, but he in himself is the offering, but he also gave it for us. And what's the exchange? What's the reciprocity? We are healed. That is what we receive by him offering himself. He is acting as in our place for the animals, for the grain, and we receive that salvation for it. Now, I'm not against people saying a prayer to come to the Lord and repent, but so long as we're still remaining on this earth, there's more to a relationship with the Lord than just a simple prayer and moving on with your life. There are more offerings that are demanded of us. Specifically, we read in the Gospel of Mark, but in all 3 synoptic Gospels, "And he summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, 'If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.' In Matthew, 'If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.' In Luke, 'If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily,' he adds, 'and follow me.'" The whole purpose of this, of denying yourself, is essentially your offering. You are being dead to yourself. You are not necessarily sacrificing. You don't sacrifice yourself. You're offering yourself. What is the exchange? The continued relationship with the Lord. Take up his cross daily and follow me. The first part, "If anyone wishes to come after me." So when we read of the Vayikra, the offerings of the animals, the offerings of the grains, we can't do that now. There's no temple to do that for. But he, Messiah, has done that in our place. And as a result, we are to be obedient to do as he did and offer ourselves on our cross, to deny ourselves. Now, a lot of times we are very obviously very physical or tangible. We see things, we hear things, we feel things. But there's far more to it. And I want to end on this from the book of Ephesians. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God. And I've put in parentheses there, essentially, deny yourself is the only way you do that, so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. I think a lot of times as believers, we take for granted our quote-unquote salvation from this world into the next. But there's still an active battle that goes on here that we may not physically see. Psychologically, emotionally, just unexpected things that happen and occur in our lives, we don't associate necessarily with the wickedness of the darkness of the devil. We just take it, well, that's just circumstances. That might be coincidence. That might just be what had happened in this situation. But our persecution doesn't just come from physical people persecuting us for our beliefs. The enemy is constantly persecuting us. The enemy is constantly trying to get at us. And so when we deny ourselves and allow the Lord to be the armor for our lives, that is where he gives his exchange, and we are in right relationship with him to overcome that. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.